Greetings to all. This is Gomati working as an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering in the Hindustan College of Engineering and Technology, Coimbatore. In this lecture video, we are going to discuss about CPU scheduling, a topic from operating system. So first of all, we have to know the basic concepts of the CPU scheduling. Why we need the CPU scheduling? Okay. So for the maximum utilization of the CPU, obviously we need to schedule the CPU among the n number of processes available. So the processes will come for the utilization of the CPU, and those processes are going to be in a waiting queue. From the waiting queue, the CPU need to select a particular process for the execution. So based on some criteria, the selection of the process will be taken place. That will be known as a CPU scheduling criteria. So how those processes are going to be given for the CPU for execution, and which process are going to be come out from the CPU, those and all taken care by the dispatcher. The term CPU dispatcher. This dispatcher will be the responsible for giving the process into the CPU and out from the CPU. Okay. Here we are having one more term which is known as the CPU burst. Okay. So this is nothing. How long a particular process required the CPU for execution to complete its task or work, which is known as the CPU burst time. Okay. Usually this will be given in milliseconds. Okay. So what about the CPU scheduler, or when the CPU scheduling is going to be happened actually? Okay, so this CPU scheduling will take in place when a process from switching from running to the waiting state. We know that we are having so many states, um, exactly 6 states of the process, right? Waiting state, running, or abortion, or the terminate, those and all. Okay. So when a process switches from running to waiting state, or a process switches from running to ready state, or a process switches from waiting to ready state, or a process is terminated totally. Okay. In this scenario, the CPU scheduling will be taken place. Okay. What is the CPU scheduling dispatcher? Okay, dispatcher. So as I said, the dispatcher module is going to give the control of the CPU to a particular process. Okay, so a dispatcher is going to give a new process to the CPU, and it is going to take out the older process from the CPU and giving the new process to the CPU for the execution. Okay, this is the responsibility of the dispatcher, process dispatcher. Okay, so here this dispatcher will involves these available task. Okay, context switching. Okay, switching to user mode or jumping to the proper location in the user program to restart the program. These and all will be the task of the dispatcher. Okay, so the next term, new term we are having is the dispatch latency. Okay, so this is nothing time it takes for the dispatcher to stop one process and start another running process. Okay, so giving a new process to the CPU and taking out the older process from the CPU, how long it will take? Okay, this timing is known as the dispatch latency. Next one is scheduling criteria. So why we go for making the CPU scheduling? Okay, so based on which scheduling criteria, the CPU scheduling will be chosen for the operating system, right? So these criteria can be vary from a scheduling algorithm to scheduling algorithm. One scheduling algorithm may have a better CPU utilization. Some CPU scheduling algorithm may produce a better or average turnaround time, or some CPU algorithm may make us having a lesser waiting time likewise. Okay, so these are the scheduling criteria available: CPU utilization, throughput, turnaround time, waiting time, and response time. Scheduling algorithm optimization criteria. So obviously, by making the CPU scheduling algorithm, we can achieve these things. The optimum, right? Maximum CPU utilization, how busy the CPU is being, right? How maximum we can utilize the CPU, and then maximum throughput. So number of processes completed at a particular time period. At a particular time unit, how many processes are completed? That is given as the maximum throughput. And minimum turnaround time. So turnaround time is nothing. How long a process will take, or how long a process is being in the CPU for execution from the time of the process is getting into the CPU and getting out from the CPU. Okay, so this the time is known as the turnaround time. So we should or the processes, if having the minimum turnaround time, then it will reflect the better response time, right? So next one is the minimum waiting time. So how long a process is waiting in the waiting queue? We know that the process will be there in the waiting queue till the CPU scheduler will select a particular process for the execution. Okay, so how long a process is waiting in the waiting queue for selection by the CPU scheduler? And then minimum response time. So how quickly the processes are responding to the required task completion, right? And then CPU scheduler can be of two type, non-preemptive and preemptive. Okay. So what about the non-preemptive CPU scheduling? Okay. Once a process is allocated the CPU, it does not leave unless the process completion. So until otherwise the process is completed its task totally or fully, that process will not be preempted, right? So no one process will come and disturb that process. Till the completion of a particular process, it will occupy the CPU and it will continue working in the CPU. But in case of the preemptive algorithm, the operating system will force a particular process to come out of the CPU. That process will be preempted and a new process can be admitted by the operating system for the execution in the CPU. So we are having two type of the CPU scheduler, non-preemptive scheduling and preemptive scheduling. So scheduling algorithms, first come first serve, shortest job first, priority scheduling, and round robin scheduling. Okay, we can have these scheduling algorithm one by one with an first come first served scheduling algorithm simply. So which process come for the waiting queue first, that process will be selected for the execution first. First come first served. Okay, so here we are having a simple example. This FCFS scheduling will be the simplest algorithm for understanding as well as for the implementation using some programming languages such as C, right? So this FCFS will be the very simplest form of the scheduling algorithm. So we can have the example. So we are having three processes are being in the waiting queue. Okay, process P1 and P2 and P3. Okay. So this process P1 is having the burst time as 24 millisecond. We know what is the burst time is, right? So usually this burst time will be denoted in millisecond, right? So this process P1 having the 24 millisecond and process P2 required 3 millisecond for its completion. Process 3 required 3 millisecond for its completion. So as this algorithm is the FCFS, so process P1 will be executed first, then process 2, then process 3. So until the process P1 completes its work or completes its task, P2 and P3 have to be wait in the waiting queue, right? So using this Gantt chart, we can understand the concept even well, right? So here at the time of 0th millisecond, the process P1 will come for the execution as there is no need for waiting, right? Because P1 is the first process come for the waiting queue, then it will be selected for the execution by the scheduler, and that P1 will be dispatched by the dispatcher, right? So in the 0th millisecond, the P1 will be admitted in the CPU for execution till the 24th millisecond because the burst time for P1 is 24, right? So from 0 to 24, the process P1 will occupy the CPU and the P1 will gets completed in 24th millisecond. After that, P2 will come for the CPU. The P2 will be selected by the CPU scheduler for execution. So how long it will occupy the CPU? 3 milliseconds, right? from 24 to 27, the process P2 will be there in the CPU. After the completion of P2, P3 will be selected for the execution. From 27th to 30th millisecond, the process P3 will have the CPU for the execution, right? So by having this Gantt chart, we can very easily we can find out the waiting time for the P1. Obviously, this is 0, and waiting time for P2 is 24. Waiting time for P3 is 27 millisecond. By adding these things and divided by 3, because we are having 3 processes in the queue, so we can have the average waiting time 17, right? And the next type of the scheduling is the SJF, shortest job first scheduling. Okay, shortest job first scheduling. Which process is having a lesser burst time, that process will be selected for the execution. This is the concept behind the shortest job first scheduling algorithm, right? So each job will be associated with the burst time, CPU burst time. Based on that, the minimum um, uh, burst time, which process is having the minimum burst time, that process will be selected for the execution, right? So this SJF is optimal because we can reduce the average waiting time if we are go for using the shortest job first scheduling algorithm. But we are having one difficulty in the SJFS is knowing the length of the next CPU request. This will be the overhead of the okay. So here we are having the example. We are having 4 processes, namely P1, P2, P3 and P4, and the corresponding burst time, right? As we know that what is the concept of SJFS, the shortest process will be selected. Here we are having 6, 8, 7 and 3. So obviously the P4 will be selected for the execution. At the 0th millisecond, process P4 will be admitted for to the CPU till the 3rd millisecond, because the burst time for P4 is 3, right? So from 0 to 3, process P4 will complete its work. After process P4, among the available processes, so which one is having the lesser um, burst time, then it will be selected for the execution. Obviously 6, process P1. Then process P1 will go for the execution. After that process 3, after that process 2. Right. So using this we can easily identify the average waiting time and waiting time for each and every process. Okay. Priority scheduling. Okay, so priority. So some priority will be given. So this will be denoted by a priority number, integer number. Based on that priority number, a particular process will be selected for the execution. So here the smallest integer will denotes the highest priority. For example, if a process is having 0 and another process is having 1, then the process which is having the 0 as the priority number will have the highest priority. So which process is having the highest priority, that process will be admitted to the CPU for the execution. So next one is the round robin. Round robin. So the process will be given with a equal time quantum, equal period of time. Um, uh, it will be given in a round robin basis, right? So a process have to wait until its next turn for, right? So here we are having the example with the time quantum given as 4 millisecond. So here we are having the process P1 is having 24 millisecond, and process P2 having 3 millisecond, and process 3 millisecond. So as we have selected the time quantum as 4 millisecond, so 4 millisecond per process will be given equally. So the process have to wait for the next turn, next 4 millisecond until it has to wait. So here we are having the first process is P1, the 4 millisecond will be given for P1. So next 4 millisecond will be given for P2. Next 4 millisecond will be given for P3. Since these P1 and P2 require only 3 millisecond, it can complete its work within the given time period. With that means the time quantum, right? So the remaining process we are having is only P1. So remaining all the time CPU time will be given for the process P1, but 4 quantum at a time, right? So by adding these things, we can find out the average waiting time for the entire process and waiting time for the particular process. So I hope you have understood the concept behind the CPU scheduling algorithm. In the upcoming videos, we can have few more core topics in CSE department. Thank you.